welcome to our Connect and Grow podcast. And if you're watching this on YouTube, welcome to following us there. So guys, today I have Ashleigh Rae from AR Service Group. Welcome, Ashleigh.
Thank you so much for having me. It's fabulous to be here.
You're most welcome. So before we started, guys, Ashleigh and I were sharing about, and I confessed, I've been following her for a long time on TikTok before I even reached out to her. And if you're not already following her over there, please go do that, because it's always good to have support. And her content is a combination of so many different things, but it's real. What you get is real. And that's what we want more of in this world.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. So, Ashleigh, your business, AR Service Group, could you share with the audience about what it is? Like, what exactly do you do, and how did you get to be doing it? I know it's a bit of a broad question, so let's go with the whole. I actually know what she does, but I like the person to share.
No, that's totally okay. Because sometimes I'm like, I don't know what I do. It's too early to be asking that question. I need more coffee before I can think about that. Look, my company really came out of a few different places of it existing. The first one was like I got into support coordination out of a need that kind of occurred in my personal life. I had a lot of loved ones that got onto NdIS. Siblings, cousins, my husband, etc., like all needing NdIS, and they were all kind of struggling with the same thing when it rolled out in Victoria many moons ago now. I don't want to think about how long ago that was.
No, it was
pre-COVID. I don't even remember life pre-COVID, I feel like.
Yeah.
So it was pre-COVID. Yeah, and it was just navigating, like, it was everyone just trying to figure out what NdIS was and what it meant back then when it was still so new. But then everyone had been on it for a little while and they were still struggling with the same things. Like, it was really hard to find a provider of something that was like quite basic and easy. Like, they needed a gardener or they needed a cleaner and they were struggling with it. And I was like, that's not hard. I can help you find that. Or at the same time, I'd been through quite a few things through COVID, and like just as we were coming out of COVID, and done a lot of advocacy with the Victorian government. And I'd been part of the #LetUsSpeak campaign, and we'd successfully changed a lot of legislation and policy in Victoria for victim survivors, of sexual assault.
Mm-hmm.
And the big one was around the right to be able to tell your story if, when, and how to whom you choose without fear of being prosecuted for it. Yeah. And so we've been really successful with a bunch of policy and legislative changes around that, and that also protect victim survivors and their families. And then I'd gone to university as well, and I was in my social work degree, and all of these things just kind of came together at like the right moment for me to go, okay, I think I could give this a go. I had tried to get work in this space more formally, but because of my disabilities, and I was newly disabled, I didn't know I was autistic or neurodivergent for a little while until after this, but I'd lost my vision, really. I was legally blind, and I was really rumbling with what that meant in so many different ways, and I was really struggling to find work, but I knew that this was a job I could do. It wouldn't be that difficult, but yet I couldn't get a job in an organization because they weren't prepared to make the accommodations that I would need or adjust the role as needed. And I also just couldn't see how, so for a lot of organizations, not all, but a lot, when you have a coordinator, they will come and do home visits or meet you in the community. And I kind of looked at that and went, well, there's no reason that couldn't be figured out or worked around, or maybe it's just something I don't do as often.
Yeah.
But no organization that I had applied to was willing to do that. So I was like, okay, I've got to figure this out and give it a go, because I know I can do it. And also I'm living out of spite. So let's try. So that's kind of where it started, and it's just grown from there, really.
No, that's exciting. And because as we know at the moment, and we're not going to do a deep dive into this because otherwise we'd be here for the next 5 weeks, is all the changes going on in the NdIS space. But I think one of the things that I'd love to focus on is the importance of connection and having that right connection for people living with a disability, and even people that, like yourself, that went, you know what, a mainstream company is not going to give me a go. They're not going to make adaptations to me, but you know what, I'm damn good at this, so I'm going to adapt and I'm going to do it my way, which is so important. So that human connection and the importance of that, especially in this trying time of uncertainty.
Yeah, I think connection in our industry or sector, whichever word you want to use, is so important. But it's not just like any connection. We can't really, that the spaghetti approach isn't going to work. I think if you want to have real connection that's actually effective in what it does, you have to nurture it. It's not just sending a random copy and pasted DM to somebody on LinkedIn or social media and saying, this is me and this is the service I offer in this area. Please send me 10 referrals. That's not going to work. And I think, like, as if anyone listening is a provider, we've all gotten those emails or direct messages, and it's just an immediate hard no, especially if you're in this space because you are either part of the disabled and chronically ill community, or you genuinely are here because this is your life work and this is something you're very passionate about. It's an immediate turn off, because it's just, no, we're here because people matter, and the people, like the participants, they're at the heart of everything. They're at the center of it. And treating them like they're just a number and to milk money out of is unacceptable. For the people who are here for the right reasons, it's unacceptable.
Yes.
Yes, we live in a capitalist world. Yes, we all have to make money, but we don't have to treat people like they're not human beings.
Exactly. We don't, I get providers, because my business being primarily business coaching amongst other things, but it's all about empowerment, and even empowering individuals. And when I get a potential provider that rings up and says, Jackie, I've just got my NdIS registration, I'll go, great, congratulations. And then they'll say, so I need you to help me find 20 clients straight away. And I went, you do realize that the market's saturated right now? And they'll go, yeah, but I need to find them because I've just spent $30,000 to get registered and all of that. And I go, oh, look, I understand that, but I really wouldn't want you caring for a loved one of mine with a disability or myself if your whole attitude is you've got to make back this $30,000. You may never make back that $30,000, or you may make it back and more. But what's the difference is actually, and I know that this word gets thrown around a lot, person-centered. I haven't come up with a different one yet, but actually putting the person at the heart of your business. That means that in your business, you have multiple hearts. So if you have 10 participants, they each have their own requirements, and actually asking them, how can we best support you? What is your expectations? Now, are you going to be doing that? Because I don't understand. I said, okay, I'm not the right person for you, and I really don't think this industry is the right person, because I can't work with people. And he goes, but I'll pay you like for 12 months coaching. And my brain goes, well, technically I could do with that money, but at what cost? And the cost was my values. So I said, I'm not the right person to help you do this. I'm not going to help you be that provider.
100%. 100%. So the way that it kind of happens in my mind is very similar, but for me, it comes back to the people that I love and care about the most. And like, I have a very young sibling. Well, at the time when they were diagnosed and assessed, they were incredibly young. They're a bit older now, but, and I think about, for them as a child, what would I have been okay with my little brother getting in terms of care and support? And then, what would I have been okay with my husband getting for care and support? And then me, as a participant, what am I okay with getting in terms of my own care and support? Because it's the same thing. I don't want to be treated like I'm just a number. I don't want people coming into, like, this is the thing that providers in that space, I think, they've missed the point of being in this space, which is, it is about helping and supporting people to live whatever kind of life they want to live, whatever that looks like, and you should not be there to judge it at all. Just live your life. If that means you're going to D&D games every week, fantastic. If that means you're going to live music, fantastic. Whatever it is. But really having a very clear set of, okay, this has to be human-centered. People have to be at the core of it. It doesn't mean that you ignore your own team and your business, like at the expense of providing supports and services to clients. But there's a good compromise. There is a good spot in the middle where both of those things can be met. My caveat to that would be exactly what you said, which is you may not ever make the money back because unfortunately the space does not pay enough and there's not enough funding, despite what the media may have anyone believe.
Yes.
It's really not easy to make a profit or to do very well financially in this space. We do run on very, very thin margins.
Yes.
And it can be really tricky. So I guess in terms of connection there, I think what's helped me a lot is TikTok was really a place where I found people like me without knowing.
Yep.
And kind of going, oh, there's a whole community of people. And I learned a lot from the disabled and chronically ill community on TikTok. I learned about people who were vision impaired and blind off TikTok because it was all very new to me and hit me at the same time, almost like in very quick succession. And, that was, for the first time through that whole journey, particularly when I lost my vision, because I lost a lot of my independence. I'm not allowed to legally drive anymore. And I used to be able to drive and I had a car and I've lost that independence. That's a huge disabling factor in Australia. Yes. Because our public transport, because we're such a big country, everything is so spaced out and nothing is interconnected. And that was the main thing I was really fighting NdIS for a number of years. But anyhow, I'm getting off track. My point is, it's the connection of the disabled community that I think matters most. And if we bring it back to, I guess, what's happened with the legislation in the last 12 months and even in the lead up to the legislation, I don't know about you, Jackie, but 2024 was a bin fire of a year to be in this industry. And it was also heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And it was a time where I really needed to lean on friends in the industry for support and commiseration and celebration equally as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you may know of Renee Fisher. So Renee's on TikTok. I forget what her name is on TikTok, but she's very much on LinkedIn at the moment. And every time Renee does a deep dive into aspects of the legislation or aspects of things, and her post is very long, she always tags me in it. And sometimes I just can't read it. Like I love Renee. I think she's amazing and she's doing the best she can to raise awareness. But her dive is so deep, so full on that if I was to sit and read it some days, especially if it's towards the end of the day, I would be in tears going, yeah, I don't want to get out of bed because of how hard or how confusing it is. And I'm a person that has studied business compliance and I read Australian consumer law. And I've read the legislation, so it's not like it's foreign language to me. But the other scary thing that I find in this industry is that at the moment there's an average of 2 to 3 small companies closing, support worker companies closing, but for every one that closes, there's at least 3 to 4 sole traders that open up. And a lot of those sole traders might be the most amazing workers. I don't know them. But what I'm seeing is they don't even believe they need to follow work health and safety guides. They don't set up as a business. They go, I just get a service agreement and that's all I need. I'm good to go.
Oh.
It frightens me because...
Does it give you the palpitations and you're like, okay, all right, let's sit down, let's sort this out.
And I'm there, and because of sometimes I'm more in autistic mode than ADHD mode. I need to be more in ADHD mode for these conversations, for those conversations. But often my autism hat comes out, and I go, "This is the rule. This is what you should do," because I understand business compliance and auditing, and you're running a business. And so often I come across a little bit blunt and I go, well, have you got your documents in that? Because we do have them and we've got a really comprehensive bundle, or I've just recently released a smaller bundle that is verification audit basically. And they were like, no, I don't need it. I rang NdIS and they said, I don't need it. I said, they're not there to give you business coaching or advice. And also, you're running a business in Australia. Maybe we could check. No, my friends have told me I don't need any of that. And then
this makes me rage because I get angry about the same thing, because it's like, no, unless your mate is a business consultant with oodles of experience specifically in this sector and does this kind of work for a living and is happy to give you actual advice, don't listen to it, because there are things we have to do. There's things you've got to do in every industry just to cover the basics. Like, you can't offer financial services without having a financial qualification and the appropriate licenses and registrations.
Same as a lawyer.
You can't be a lawyer without having the qualifications and passing I think it's called the bar here still, but whatever the exams are here. Yeah. You can't be a doctor without the degrees, etc. And it's just, it's nowhere near as complex to like open a company or be a sole trader, but you still need to have some basics in place regardless. And it's protective of everyone.
Yes.
Like, it protects your clients, it protects you, it protects your organization. Yeah. Like, just do it.
I started doing some videos just to talk to it, but because of my personality, I'm like, here you go, here's the encyclopedia, and I've just given the encyclopedia away for free, where maybe I should have just given the flyer away for free and kept the encyclopedia. But no, I get carried away.
You know what? It's really hard though in our sector, because there's unfortunately a lot of businesses and organizations that will not do the right thing and are intentionally exploitative. And so it's kind of like, if you're in this space for the right reasons and you're here for the long haul, then you're going to want to give it away because you want it to be an easier place to work in. You want to get out of bed in the morning and feel excited and keen to go to work, not really depressed because of, cowboy organizations out there doing the wrong thing, making it harder on everyone.
Yeah, 100%. So I know that you went through a bit of a hard time with your plan reviews and things like that. Have you noticed that the plan reviews are getting harder or easier for people now? Because the few meetings I've sat in, I've just been a pro bono support for the person. Their support coordinator disappeared as soon as the funding did. So I've just sat in meetings with people just because I used to be a support coordinator. But I'm there as a support person, but I'm sitting there going, what do you mean you're cutting the funding? Like, what's the purpose of the plan now, kind of thing? So are you noticing, is it still a bit tough out there?
I wouldn't even say a bit tough. I'd say there is a very distinct line between 2023 and 2024 where the attitude and ethos of the NdIS completely changed, and it changed so fast, and it wasn't even to do with any media announcements. Like, it started before the media spin started, and it started before there were rumblings about legislation. It was that the attitudes completely changed. And so all of last year, and keep in mind, the legislation only changed in October, so we had most of the year on the old legislation. So even in the lead up to that, we found people's plans were being cut for no reason. We had the evidence, and we knew that happened before, but it was usually easier to kind of get it reinstated or increased. It wasn't as difficult. Now there's so much pushback where we're seeing things, particularly things like psychology, being cut back. And we're seeing parts of people's plans changing, where it's happened actually very recently for a few people, about 4 or 5 people that I'm aware of that we work with, where they believe that they're fully plan managed except for 1 or 2 categories. And those are agency managed, and they've not been told. And they've not been told what the implications are and what that means. And so they've come to us for, say, coordination, but they've made coordination agency managed. And unfortunately, we're only an enrolled provider at this stage. And so we have to say, we're really sorry. It's not that we don't want to work with you, but we can't until this is planned or self-managed. And then we have to go through explaining the differences. And that's very overwhelming for someone who's brand new to NdIS as well.
Yeah, I know that the when I learnt support coordination, one of the things that I was taught was because I originally got a lot of plans that were self or plan managed, but the company I worked for was NdIS registered. So it didn't matter either way. But I remember when getting that plan, and one of the first things I was told was, like, by my senior, was get that changed to agency managed ASAP so we can go in the background and actually track the funding. And I went, well, can't we just get a report from the plan manager? Like, if the person gives consent, we could work that way. Anyway, so I remember when I left there, and a few people came to me for support coordination, even though I was more wanting to get into further coaching because I love that. But I did a bit of support work. I did a bit of support coordination pro bono, things like that. And I'd say to people, look, as long as you keep track of your funding and you actually see the invoices, whichever way you go, except for agency managed, obviously, you should be fine. But it's finding that right person that actually not only understands the role of a support coordinator, but how, like, all that back end of NDIA as well, NDIS, because so
Yep.
many support workers come to me and go, Jackie, I want to be a support coordinator. And I did put together a short course that was a little different to what's out there, purely because I have the lived experience, but I also have nursing background. I've been part of NDIS in some capacity since it started its trial. So I've been around a while. But I say, well, why do you want to be a support? Well, I could do a better job than the current support coordinator. I say, you actually don't know that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You maybe you could, but do you even know? So what I do is I take them through a really tough planning meeting. I literally role play a planner meeting with them to see how they're going to handle it.
I think that's actually a really excellent way to do it, because it does give a bit of a taste. And it's not even, it might be quite realistic and be like an actual situation that's happened, but it gives you a bit of an insight, because when you're a coordinator, here's the thing, you are an intermediary. You are the middleman between a participant and the NdIS. And that is a really difficult position to be in, even when times are good. Let alone when they are really combative like they are now. It is really difficult. And coordinators often cop the blame for things that are not their fault. There are a lot of really great coordinators and recovery coaches out there who do excellent work, but they're undermined at every turn. And what really sucks about it is, I find that for roles that are unique to the NdIS, that the government has specifically created, that they have no real education resources to actually try and help people be successful at that job.
Yep.
All they have is a vague job description on the NdIS website. And that, I think, is what's really kind of facilitated the wrong practices from happening. And anyone thinking that they can do it. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. I don't want to say to any support worker, like, you could never be a coordinator. That's not the case.
No.
But like you, I've learned the hard way as well that as a support worker, that doesn't mean you can necessarily be a coordinator. They are very different jobs with very different responsibilities.
Yep. Yeah. I remember, because I worked in community health for a long time, pre-NdIS, and we did we were called care coordinators, then we were called navigators, then we were called support coordinators, and then NdIS, we started doing the trials of NdIS and my aged care, and then things changed and I left that organisation and I worked in GP clinic as I did health coaching, and I also it was a care coordinator trial in GP clinics, which is effectively the current support coordinator role. But it wasn't just NdIS related. So they trialled that when NdIS was relatively new, and that trial went on for about 12 months. And in one GP clinic, it was really working. In another GP clinic, it was a lot harder because they had to, they got a little bit of funding, but they really had to justify my wage. And as a nurse, I still had to be paid within, because a lot of my duties as that care coordinator fell over into nursing, like, taking blood pressures and doing all those things. And that it was a really interesting time. And now we've got the that grant application that was opened up to a select few that were invited to apply. And a lot of that, we sit back and I look at that and I go, and I'm getting support coordinators saying, I don't even know why I would bother trying to register when they make that mandatory anywhere from the 1st of July, because now they're doing this trial, which is very about cost effectiveness of the role.
Yeah, and look, it's a really scary time to be a coordinator. For myself, even, my team already know this, and I've already talked about it on social media. But I decided we were gearing up to kind of go through registration before any of this was announced. Like, I was really wanting to build as if we were going to do it regardless, which was my aim anyway. Mm. So we're in kind of a good position, like, for that. But then when they've turned around and said they're looking at changing the entire registration model around this, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to hit the brakes on everything, because we don't know what this is going to look like. We don't know if the requirements are going to change. We don't know if they're going to put fixed pricing in place. We just don't know what's going to be required, how much time and energy, and how viable it's going to be. Because, again, coordinators have not had a pay rise in, 6 years now, coming up to maybe more. So we're in a cost of living crisis. I don't know about anyone else who runs a coordination practice or includes it, but I make an effort to hire my team directly from the disabled and chronically ill community as much as possible. And we have higher costs of living than someone who doesn't have a disability or a chronic illness. So there's a lot of financial pressures. And when you haven't had a pay rise in that long, like, that is incredibly difficult to rumble with and navigate. And I think, like, it's a really good incentive for people to leave, to pack up shop and go, this is too hard.
Yep.
So it's one of those things that, even for me, like, I'm sitting there and going, we just have to watch and see what happens and then decide as things become clearer.
Yeah. And I think too, we're also seeing in the sector that with the still changes of a lot of support, a lot of plan funding coming back. It used to be 1-to-1, now it's 1-to-3, or even I saw one the other day that was 1-to-4, and they used to be 1-to-1 and they're 24-hour. And so we're also seeing a lot of still providers landing in payment lock, even though they've done nothing wrong. And so there's a lot of undercurrent, and I feel for those living with the plan or their family members, because a lot of plans are 12 months. So they just go, all right, well, now we're doing this. Oh, now it's changed again. And there's no consistency for that quality of life, which was the actual original intent of NdIS, was to help bring in support for those people that really needed it and take off some of the stress off the family. And I know that the whole talk was, let's get the NdIS back on track, but I think that it feels to me we've moved further off track than even with the legislation changes of getting the NdIS back on track. It's like
100%. I have to agree. It doesn't feel like it got anywhere near back on track. I mean, in a space like this where, you have to remember who's at the center of it. Again, it is vulnerable people with disabilities. And often that intersects with chronic illnesses and multiple disabilities of all sorts. And that's a huge scope to cover in terms of, like, just the humanity of it. And that's kind of what's been forgotten. Like, it keeps getting touted as being, the most important thing, but it's really not what is actually happening on the ground. And that is a fast way to burn out your workforce and have no one available. Like, I know a lot of organizations closing down and people don't want to come back. They're done. They're burnt out. It is a bit like, I'm not going to fully compare it to this, but it's a bit like when we saw everybody leave healthcare after COVID.
Yes. Yeah.
They don't want to be there. They are so burnt out and they are tired of being treated terribly by the government and being made out to be the bad guys.
Yes.
To be honest, I'm tired of it. I think we all are. We're all burnt out. And it's also a trauma that's happened in the industry to everybody. And some of us, we all handle it a little bit differently, but that's where I think that connection comes in really handy, because something I notice is that provider to provider, there can be a bit of cattiness, and like there's that competitive factor of like, no, I want clients, and looking at them like dollar signs, rather than, am I the right provider for that person? Do I have the skills and qualifications to actually offer that service and support to them? And then there's also a really big divide between providers and participants.
Yes.
Really big divide and a lot of mistrust. And part of that is because there has been the wrong thing done by providers. Providers have absolutely exploited participants. And equally, there's the side of disability and working in a space that nobody wants to talk about, which is that people with disabilities have a lot of vast needs. And sometimes that means that workers are also having things happen to them in the workplace that are really not okay.
Yep.
And so we're talking about, they can sustain a lot of injuries. They can have their own traumas from the workplace. And that's a really, really difficult thing. A little bit, I guess, as a nurse, you're going into hospitals and you don't know what's going to happen on that shift. You don't always know what's going to happen on shift in disability either.
Yeah. And I think to add to that too is a lot of people come into this industry, and I'm seeing it in a lot of independents as well, is that their friend told them, oh, this is great, you can earn $65 an hour and you set your own hours. And then they go into someone's home, and I even see nurses do this as well. They go into someone's home and they have no concept of what they're walking into because they didn't do a phone risk assessment first. They're literally walking blind into someone's house. And then they walk in, and I came across a person that is a bit of a hoarder. So they're not a full hoarder, like not the full like we've seen on TV, but they still had piles of stuff everywhere. And they said, and their words to me was, I'm a hoarder. So before you come into my house, you need to know this. Do you get claustrophobic? And I went, you know what, I'm going to need a bit more detail before I walk in. But they go in and then they try to change the person. They go, let's pack this up. Let's clean this up. And having been someone that was that person that had those piles of stuff as part of my neurodivergent traits, my sister, I couldn't get myself to get everything in order because every room I walked into, there was another pile that was overwhelming. So I kind of got it from this particular person's perspective. And so when I went there, I accepted where they are and I asked them what they wanted. But a lot of people are coming into this industry to actually change that person or mold them to how they think they should provide supports, rather than it stopping and saying, like we said at the beginning, so Mary, what is it that you would like from me? What is your expectation from me? And then if that's not what I can deliver, I'm going to help you find someone else.
100%. And it's exactly what you said. You have to put the participant, the person with the disability, the person who's also hiring you, at the center, and remember that you're actually not entitled to their funding. You have no right over their funding. It is up to them how they want to use it, and you may or may not be the right organization or person for them, and that's okay. Things also change over time. You might be the right person for them now, but you might not be in a couple months.
Yep.
And we also shouldn't be trying to change people.
No.
They are allowed to live their life however they want. Yeah. We're there to support them we're there to help empower them to do that. I mean, that sounds a little bit of, if I can say that, wanky to say, empower them to do that. But we're kind of there to help facilitate whatever that looks like for them.
Yes, it's their life. It's their body. It's what they're living in all of the time. It's like, for me at the moment, going through something where I'm in consistent pain all day and then trying to show up. And I had somebody call and say, I need a support worker. I'm in Adelaide. And I went, okay, you asking me to help you find one? She goes, no, I want you to fly to Adelaide to be my support worker.
This is a very generous offer. I think.
I really don't think. I think we can do better. And she goes, but I've seen you. And I went, oh, look, I appreciate the support. And I said, but honestly, I would get there and you'd have to take care of me. And she goes, what? And I went, yes, you'd have to take care of me. I'd be exhausted. And she kind of laughed about it. But we did find her the right provider. But it's something that we also have to put in healthy boundaries both as workers, and then the people living with the disability have to put in healthy boundaries for themselves as well, so that workers aren't taking advantage of them. And then even the other way, I've seen a few where the participants have asked some very inappropriate things of people, and so there needs to be boundaries in both. And then with those healthy boundaries in place, you can actually have the best experience for both parties.
100%. So, like, if you're going and doing home visits, and like there are things you've got to do when you do a home visit, like those risk assessments, that's okay. You've got to do those things. And sometimes, like, whatever the service is, like, if you're providing, I can't think what, but like, let's say it's some kind of nursing support at home that requires, I don't know, medical equipment changing thingamajigs.
Mm.
I really can't remember what they are or think of what they are, but something like that, then it doesn't mean that you don't go about it in the clinical way you need to, but you do need to go into that space respecting that that is that person's home. And for someone with a disability, and not that this is everyone in the community, but for a lot of us, our home is more than just four walls and a roof and a place where we crash at night.
Yes.
A lot of us live our entire lives out of our homes, where regardless of having support workers or not, it's still incredibly isolating.
Yes.
Everything happens at home: work, study, family, romance, friendships, everything is at home. So it is more than just a home. We don't go to these separate places. Like, we don't always go to universities. We don't always go to a workplace. We don't always go to our parents' house for things. Everything can happen. Most things can happen at our home. So having respect for what our home can mean to us as well is incredibly important. But coming back to connection over competition or yickiness is, we're in an election year, and after everything we've been through in the last 12 months, I mean, aside from it being an election year, we have voting power. So please register to vote. And I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. No. I am just going to say, remember that the Minister for NdIS did a deal with Pauline Hanson, who actively does not like people with disabilities. But you pick who you want to vote for. But regardless of that, in order for any change to kind of happen, change that we want, and providers and participants, we know how this needs to go. We know what changes need to happen. We have to be united in that and support each other as much as possible and not exploit each other.
100%. I've got an event coming up on the 20th of March. It's a expo in the morning and a lunch and connection in the afternoon. So we've got 3 speakers, plus I might get to say something. We'll see how time goes. But I've picked certain people to bring value to the room. But one of the biggest things is, I don't want people walking that are there in the afternoon is to walk in and expect to, here's my business card, you're going to refer people to me. One of the goals that we're going to be doing is actually working on how the conversation goes to, and I use the word collaborate lightly because collaborate means something different to everybody. So collaboration, we're collaborating right now. We're having an actual conversation, which we're going to share out to other people. But collaboration, often people think, oh yeah, I'm going to get reimbursed for this, or I'm going to make, and if we can take the money out of it just for a little bit, just for a second, because don't get me wrong, I want to get paid for my services too. But if we can just take it out and go, okay, so tell me about your services and how you deliver it, because then I know what you do. So if I hear somebody that comes to me, I might be able to refer them to you. But I don't want you to tell it to me from a money perspective or getting a kickback because I'm going to refer to you. Like, I don't do referral fees or whatever. If somebody refers someone to me, I say thank you. If I refer someone to someone else, I say thank you for taking them. And in this world, a lot of people will say, I'll refer to you, but how much will you pay me per referral? And I'm like, thank you. A thank you.
Doesn't that give you the ick?
It does. And like, even for my magazine, we set up an affiliate program. Now that's an actual, you got to do a bit of work, and that's completely different to that referral thing, because when And here's one thing I've just remembered that I use when I have this discussion is people will say to me, so how many people can you refer? I need people that say require social and community access and assistance with daily living. And I'll go, And I joke with them, and this is no disrespect to anybody living with a disability because I'm trying to make a point. I say, so with the social and community, is that a gardening type person, an art and craft type person? And they go, what do you mean? I said, well, I need to know whether to send you to Bunnings or Spotlight. And they go, what do you mean? I said, because you're talking about them like they're an item on the shelf in Bunnings, or because this is what you need. I said, no, it's all about going, I provide these services that works with you. So we're not even talking so much about the service. So, you want someone to help you go to community. Okay, great. What does that look like for you? Is that a concert? Because I'm no good at concerts, but, or is it gaming? Like, what is it for you? And instead of going, I need these kind of people. So I do bring it down to, do I need to send you to Bunnings or Spotlight? Because that's how you're making these people sound like you're going to walk in and just grab them off the shelf.
Exactly. And also, let's not assume that all of us need the same type of person. I see a lot that we have a lot of social and community access services and organizations that actually have no understanding of what people want from that. No concept, and they're not willing to learn either. And usually that's also because they haven't niched. No. They actually haven't taken time to get to know who they can work best with and get the best relationships with. And also, if you take care of their relationship, everything else takes care of itself.
And that's where you get the really good organic referral too, because this is what I say to people is how you show up all of the time, and even your profile picture on Facebook or LinkedIn or something is all interconnected. So if you're wanting to, attract a certain type of person, then be you and see if that matches. But also think about how you communicate with people. And if you come from not so much heart space, but actually listening to somebody and they're really happy with your service, they're going to then go and say, my support worker was brilliant today, or she annoyed the heck out of me, but hey, we got the gardening done, or whatever it was. And then somebody will go, I need a support worker for this. I'll go, you should give Jackie a call, or I need a support coordinator, you should give Ashleigh a call. Like those organic referrals, yes, we can advertise you in our people in our magazine, and we try to create that organic sense in the sense of we do video ads now, but it's all about the best referrals are going to come from someone that's actually used your services or have watched your services and got to know you or the business.
And word of mouth in this sector is, like we say, word of mouth is really powerful in any industry, right? Like it is the best advertiser, but in a space like disability, it is exponentially more powerful because we're talking about a level of trust that is, I think you would only see this kind of rivaled in healthcare.
Yep.
And NdIS is a bit of a weird space because it's a mix of, private, not-for-profit, and a whole bunch of other things. Like it's a weird mix of things. Yes. It's not the same as what you see in healthcare. So the trust factor is massive. So if you do get a really good provider and there is good word of mouth, that word of mouth isn't worth the same as it is in other industries.
No.
It's so much more valuable.
Yeah, because as you said earlier, so many people living with a disability that have an NdIS plan have just been felt like they're a paycheck to somebody, and that saddens me because it doesn't need to be that. I remember letting a participant know after having a meeting with, like there was a team meeting, which she wasn't there, and I just said, you know what, I really like her as a person. I can't help her anymore. I'm going there and I'm sitting there for 2 hours and we're having great conversations. Don't get me wrong. I could sit and have a chat with her all day, but I couldn't keep being paid for that when the goal was that she wanted to get a few things done. So that wasn't really, so I actually pulled the pin. I said, I will keep working with her for another 4 weeks. Let's try and get another provider in. I'll help doing a handover. I will do anything, but I'm not helping her progress.
Yeah. And sometimes we do have to be very honest about, like, okay, we're just not the right fit for that person anymore or right now. It doesn't mean we're not in the future. It's kind of the way that, for the most part, I like to think we're pretty good at this, but there's always room to improve and tweak and change things. But it's part of how we do our intake as well. It's a little bit different, and we're constantly double checking things and going, okay, are we the right person? Because we're not. Not all referrals are equal, and it really, you do have to be very blunt about whether you're a sole trader or you have a team. You need to know your own capabilities and your team's capabilities and what they're able to deliver comfortably and sustainably, so that they're not burning out as well.
Yeah, so important. Well, Ashleigh, this has been really great having you on, and we'll share the video, and then the podcast audio will be on Spotify. So all of these should be up in the next 24, 48 hours. So I'll share the links. But guys, if you're looking for the support coordinator service, then have a chat with Ashleigh or her team and see if you are the right person for her. And if not, but you just want to stay up to date with things and understand all the beautiful things that Ashleigh brings, then why not follow her on TikTok as well? Because it's a lot of fun there. So thanks for being part of today, Ashleigh. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. And if you want to have a chat on TikTok, I'm so here for it. I love the community we've got over there.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right. Thank you for that.